Welcome back to the Boomerang Podcast. We got some interesting topics today for you. What are we talking about today, Drew?
Well, we just wrapped up day 2 of the BRICS Nations Summit in South Africa, and I thought that might be a good topic.
Yeah, the BRICS nations, they are China, Russia, India, South Africa,
And Brazil.
And essentially what they're trying to do is, I think what the way I see it at least, is I think that they're trying to do two things. Is they're trying to control both the money supply, right, the monetary systems, at least the strong ones, as well as the energy. Tell me a little bit about what your take is on the meetings of the last 2 days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest take is, economic war against the G7 countries. And I think the de-dollarization is really the couple of big topics, along with creating their own currency backed by gold, silver, other commodities, oil. And I think, the rest of the world's also watching the summit, and you have, a couple dozen other countries that are interested in joining. You have countries like Saudi Arabia who are attending, and they're listening, paying attention as well. And I think really, it's something that you're not going to hear in mainstream media over here because they just don't want people here even really knowing about it, what's going on, not aware of, potential things that could hurt, their financial, security, if you will.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what the original 16-year plan, so to speak, was by the Democrats, which was they wanted to wipe the wealth out of the United States. And I think what they were planning to do was with the victory of Hillary Clinton in 2016, which of course never came to fruition. What Hillary's plan really was, along with Obama's years, was to get the wealth out of the United States. Right. And what the Chinese and the Russians did was they got together maybe 10, 12 years ago and they created a currency called the yuan or the won, however you want to pronounce it. And essentially that was a gold-backed currency, right? It's a gold-backed money. And what they want to do was right now, ever since 1971, when Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, was countries would have to buy oil using the dollar, right? And what China realized was, hey, if we intercept this mechanism of buying oil using the dollar, right, and countries now have to go to the yuan, that gives China tremendous power. So it gives them power over both the monetary system as well as energy, right? And what Hillary Clinton was planning on doing had she become president was she would have allowed this without anybody stopping in the way. However, we got a man by the name of Donald John Trump, and he threw a wrench in these plans. And right now you're seeing the BRICS nations. I think they're scrambling. I think India, they were talking about backing out. You saw a little bit about that, right? I think it's a distrust in China.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I really think they have enough mutual interest, even though they are, historically kind of enemies, right? But I think the de-dollarization, taking the dollar away as the world currency, is very appealing to them and a lot of countries that want to join. Historically, as a country, we've kind of been able to use that as a bullying, tactic, if you will, to other countries. And over time, in feeling disrespected with different administrations like Biden and Saudi Arabia, they are looking for an opportunity to kind of knock us off our throne a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, if you had the help of the federal government under, let's say, a president like Hillary Clinton, you would have absolutely gotten that. It's not a coincidence that the Democrats and the rhinos, of course, it's not a coincidence that they shut down oil production in the country, because then they can do what? Consolidate with places like Saudi Arabia, so they continue that complete monopoly on oil production. Meanwhile, the United States has more oil than all the countries in the Middle East combined. We should be the wealthiest nation on the planet. The real question here, I think, is what have our politicians been doing the last 50 years, 60 years? Why haven't we been doing our own oil?
Yeah, and I think a big thing is, they want to take the leverage away from the average American, right? Our own government, our own politicians, which is crazy to think about. Traitors. Yeah, it's absurd. So by not allowing us to do this, going to EV cars, which then they have to mine all that, raw material and everything in other countries,
cobalt,
like, cobalt, right? Lithium and things like that in places like China, and it gives them leverage over us, our supply chains, right? And it's a destruction that they're intentionally doing, I think, to America, right?
Let's just look back in time. I mean, China created the Silk Road in Africa.
Right.
So what they did is they went to the African governments and said, "Hey, we'll go and build your infrastructure. We'll bring you into the first world, but in exchange, we get all your resources."
Yep.
Right. And I think what this is coming down to is it's coming down to a resource-based economy. What resources do you have? Right. China doesn't have the cobalt or the lithium. So what do? They go and invade Africa, essentially, right? Invade them through their own governments and take what it is. It's just another raping and pillaging of Africa.
Predatory lending.
Right.
Hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z for you. We're going to give you a loan you're never going to be able to repay. And then when you can't repay it, we're going to take over your airfields, your minefield, your natural resources. And it's strategic.
And I think something really to be said here is we're hearing rumors of a coordinated sell-off of U.S. Treasury bills or T-bills. Isn't it amazing when your money's not sovereign that you give these other countries who you borrow from, you give them leverage over you because all they have to do is buy your Treasury bonds. And if they do a coordinated sell-off at once, they could take you out financially instantly.
Absolutely.
And we might see that.
Yeah. I think they're planning on it. They're waiting for the right time.
Right.
An interesting chart that I saw today, and we'll pull up on the screen, but it's the GDP between the G7 and the BRICS nations, and all going back to 95, right, where their GDP was so small, right, and then 2010 they're catching up, and now in 2023 they're in parity, if not a little bit further ahead in GDP. So they're getting to a point where they have the purchasing power, they have the economic power that they can actually compete with us, and we've allowed really this to happen, intentionally or not. Regardless, it has happened, and so now I think this is why we're finally seeing those moves for these countries to get aggressive.
Yeah, it's almost as if these countries were ripping us out from our foundation, the very foundations of this country.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that be energy, right, what we produce, right, or whatever it is, right, could be steel, right. Trump always talked about the steel industry. So yeah, I would be looking out in these next couple weeks, maybe certainly the next month, over the next year. I would be looking for these countries to attack our entire monetary system by doing a coordinated sell-off of our treasury bills. Treasury bills is where our money's created, right? They're turned into bonds. Right. So essentially you get people that buy those bonds. Well, if everybody's selling off those bonds at the same time, they become worthless. This is why the banks have been failing. This is why we've seen the string of these banks going south. And we're going to continue to see that, I think, is because why? These banks are heavily invested in treasury bills.
Yeah.
So it completely undermines our banking system.
Right.
So
at the same time, with having really high interest rates, adds the stress to them.
Adds the stress to it. So, I mean, I think this is also the importance of what we do, which is what? Tangible assets.
Correct.
Gold, silver.
Yeah,
right?
Protect yourself. Get yourself out of their system.
Get out of their system, right? Gold and silver are always going to be money. You're going to see the dollar continue to devalue itself. Probably, you put up a funny graph.
Yeah,
I think we're going to put it up on the screen.
The new $1 bill.
The new $1 bill. Right? Let's put it up.
Yeah. A $20 bill.
The $20 bill. That was great. You sent that company wide today. I think everybody got a good laugh out of it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's so true.
It's true. It's unfortunate. So yeah, just protect yourself. Consider these things. It's coming much faster than we think, and I just would really encourage everybody to, as we always say, see the forest through the trees. Protect yourself financially. Get extra medicine. Right, it's all produced in China anyway. Get your pets covered. Get a generator. Right, the storables. There might be some time things go down. Who knows how long that'll be?
What people need to understand is this system is failing, and there's going to be another system. And if you're stuck in just dollars, if you have all your money in the bank, that's extremely risky. And you need to prepare for the next monetary system, and you need to have something to buy into that system with. And that's why I think we really believe in gold and silver as a hedge, right? You can't go all in. You still have to straddle the line between the two systems.
Find a balance.
But do understand that the status quo is not going to continue to be, and so there is going to be a change.
And then just, one other point, and we've referenced it before in some of our videos, is, the Jan Halper Hayes interview where she was on, I don't know if it was BBC or one of those, it was a British station, but she said at the very end, she's laughing. She says, yeah, in 2018, during Trump's presidency, Trump went to the Vatican, visited the Pope, and sent in 650 cargo planes to take our gold out of the Vatican bank. What does it tell you? Why does Trump dye his hair bright gold? We're going back to gold. Gold's going to be a very important asset to have, and we just want people to understand that.
Yeah, and with the BRICS nations, they understand that. Right. Yeah. But our own leaders and, politicians, they want us in this system of a debt-based system, interest-based system. And really it's just keeping us, it's making people poorer and poorer and poorer. Right. And those countries in the BRICS, they understand, like, to have a strong, to compete with the dollar and to get out of that system, they need to create a currency that is backed by gold and silver. So they're actually ahead of the game, right? And they're coming together as one to be able to create this system. And really, then they can do things like drop the debt, right? Not buy anymore, drop the T-bills, and swamp us with a ton of cash.
Right.
You can have Saudi Arabia not trading the dollar, send all those dollars back here, create crazy
They have
inflation.
a soft landing, we crash.
Yeah, they're preparing for that. And
they're ready.
All we're doing is printing more and more money.
Yeah. So I think our message today would just be, prepare yourself, pay attention to this stuff. The more we get updates on, what the BRICS nations are doing, any pertinent information, we're going to bring it right to you. Thanks for watching the Boomerang Podcast with me and my boy Drew. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button. We'll see you in the next episode.